Dear audience, a lot of things has already been said by my respected teacher, Dr. Mizan. I'll just focus on the rest. Because today we are discussing human rights and democracy in Bangladesh. Let us start with some few bottom lines. If even one person is denied equal access and protection of law, that is one too many. If even one person is wrongly incarcerated or is a victim of enforced disappearance, alleged, or of extrajudicial killing, that is one too many. If even one person is persecuted for his faith, beliefs, or views, that is one too many. So these are the bottom lines. The red lines every country needs to address and remedy. So does Bangladesh, just like any other country in the world. Because human rights are universal, as Dr. Mizan very eloquently said, because human rights are something that is non-negotiable. There are no two ways about it. In an ideal world, judging a country's human rights should be a clear-cut and a very black and white exercise. But we do not live in an ideal world. We are yet to overcome the gaps between the rhetoric and realities of human rights. Our world is not a world where actors and players all work towards the same vision or with the same agenda. Even the understanding and priorities of human rights vary from one group of stakeholders to another. So the very definition of human rights is not always straightforward, let alone its application and its enforcement and the challenges that come with it. So while we discuss a country's human rights, any constructive conversation must first acknowledge that invoking of human rights and democracy is not always what they seem. And really, there can only be two ways to that conversation. It can go either way. One, we can either be part of the solution, that is, acknowledge the problem, find a constructive, sustainable ways to address that, and take it from there. Or number two, we can be part of the problem, not the solution, by perpetuating the confrontations and divisions and by refusing to judge things in their context, in their history. That's why we must choose our words carefully while we're talking about human rights. Because words are powerful. They create narratives and even realities, as the great Oxford philosopher J.L. Austin very famously said. Words can create realities. So I'd like to make just 3 points. But first let me clarify, it's not my intention to defend or blame or name anyone. That is never the best way to start any meaningful conversation. In my 3 points, I would rather focus on some ideas, some principles, and would like to share some perspectives that we can say the ground realities of Bangladesh, as we're talking about Bangladesh here today. First, while realities on the ground are never ideal, and that which must be addressed, of course, as I said in the very beginning, we must acknowledge that bad faith actors, they also exist, sadly, on all sides. This is a stark reality. Just like habitual actors with very poor track record of human rights, there are also many who view human rights as just another foreign policy tool, as Dr. Mizan has mentioned. To the latter group, human rights is just another bargaining chip in the next trade deal, in the next strategic treaty. To them, human rights is something to be weaponized for political gains, to embarrass and corner weaker states. To them, it is just another lawfare strategy. Some of you may be very familiar with the term lawfare. There was a time when human rights used to be a domain led by dedicated rights activists, campaigners. Sadly, now that domain, to a great extent, has been hijacked by highly paid professional lobbyists, expensive lawyers on retainer, powerful PR outfits, public relations outfits, and specifically regime change actors. And also, if I may dare say, even by well-meaning human rights careerists. That's a sad reality. We must acknowledge that they too now operate in the broader political space of human rights. So we cannot separate human rights from its stakeholders and operation on all sides. No matter how idealistic the vision of human rights is, it does not exist in isolation, fully divorced from politics or power. That was my first point. Second, the framers of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights did not prioritize one set of human rights over another set of human rights. While that great document, on one hand, outlined the social, cultural, and economic rights as human rights, on the other hand, it also outlined civil and political rights. So when we talk about human rights and judge a country based on that, we must talk about both sets of human rights. We must discuss social, economic, cultural, civil, and political rights of a country as a whole. It is certainly not my argument that one set of fundamentals should be prioritized over another, or that one set of rights can be justly sacrificed or abandoned for the sake of another. That's not my point. Both sets of rights must be guaranteed. That should be the starting point, of course. But while evaluating a country's human rights, we must take into account the whole picture in all its contexts and complexities. While talking about aspirations and ideals of human rights, we must also be mindful of the strides a country is making in the face of challenges. Otherwise, it will be an incomplete assessment, it will be an unfair assessment, and certainly alienating for the country at the receiving end. So now let me come to my last and final point. Let's start with some numbers. I've been a human rights activist for nearly 3 decades. For the 3 decades, I often felt that Bangladesh's human rights challenges are, to a great extent, governance-related challenges. And they are actually very inextricably linked to one another. Let me explain how. In Bangladesh, there is a backlog at this very moment of 4 million cases in the judiciary. And our judiciary in Bangladesh is grappling with that challenge. As mentioned, 1.2 million Rohingya refugees are currently hosted in Bangladesh. The country itself is facing a climate emergency, and very disproportionate to most countries in the world, the extent of crisis it is faced with. Top of that, yes, Bangladesh has a monumental governance challenge, insurmountable resource challenge as well. But despite all that, the country is thriving in all economic and social indicators, as many of you are already aware of that. So we cannot legitimately discuss human rights and democracy situation of Bangladesh without actually meaningfully and thoroughly acknowledging the challenges as well as the great strides the country has already made towards progress and self-reliance. Speaking of governance challenges, let me remind that people of Bangladesh have survived one great partition, an exodus, one vicious war, 3 famines. Interestingly, the worst of those 2 famines actually took place during the British rule. Bangladesh has survived 3 military dictators and countless political assassinations. And majority of those assassinations were actually perpetrated by current opposition and their political allies. And still the country is thriving. Before I end, finally let me give you some very basic statistical context for you to see the bigger picture so that you can compare by yourself. Let's compare Bangladesh to Canada. Canada, in landmass, but Canada is 67 times bigger than Bangladesh. But Bangladesh has 4.6 times more the population of Canada. Let's talk about UK, United Kingdom. The country, United Kingdom, is 1.6 times bigger than Bangladesh. But Bangladesh has 2.65 times more population compared to United Kingdom. Let's talk about Australia. That country is 52 times bigger than Bangladesh. But Bangladesh feeds 7 times more people. Bangladesh's population is 7 times more than Australia. The only exception is, part exception I would say, is United States of America. USA is 66 times bigger in its area compared to Bangladesh. And only USA, of all the countries I mentioned, only USA has more population than Bangladesh. That is only 1.85 times more people lives in the United States. So you kind of get a picture of it and the amount of challenge that Bangladesh is faced with the limitation of resources and everything. So let's consider issues of human rights and democracy in their entirety, keeping in mind the context first. Let's judge things on balance. Thank you.